Felix stood at the compound's entrance like a spirit summoned from Loveta's desperate prayers. He was thinner than she remembered, his clothes worn and patched, but his eyes burned with something she hadn't seen in over a year, the courage that had first drawn him to her when everyone else looked away. Giwa's hand froze mid-air. He turned slowly, his face transforming from rage to cold amusement. "Felix," he said, his voice dripping with mockery, "the farmer's boy, what are you doing trespassing on my property in the middle of the night?" "I heard her crying," Felix said, his voice steady despite the slight tremor in his hands. "I was passing by on my way back from the farm, and I heard crying. That's when I knew something was wrong." "You were passing by?" Giwa laughed, a sound without humor. "This compound is not on the way to anywhere. You were lurking, spying, probably thinking about my wife the way poor men always covet what belongs to their betters." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Felix said, his eyes finding Lovata's across the distance. "She's a person, not property." Giwa's expression darkened. "I'm going to give you one chance to leave before I call the village guards and have you beaten for trespassing." "Fine. Call them," Felix stepped forward into the compound. "Then we can all discuss why your wife has a fresh bruise forming on her face, why she flinches when you move too quickly, why the servants whisper about the sounds that come from your bedroom when you're angry." Lovita's breath caught. She had no idea Felix had been paying attention, that anyone had noticed her suffering through the performance of perfection she maintained in public. Giwa's jaw clenched. "You know nothing about my marriage," Felix interrupted. "I know Loveta. I knew her before you decided she was beautiful enough to be worth your time. I knew her when she was still herself, before she became this." He gestured at her elaborate wrapper and jewelry. "Decorated doll you keep in your fancy compound." "Get out," Giwa said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Get out now or I swear—" "Or what?" Felix challenged. "You'll hit him the way you hit her?" The words hung in the air like smoke from a struck match, waiting to ignite. Giwa moved with shocking speed. He crossed the compound and struck Felix across the face with the back of his hand, the sound sharp and violent. Felix stumbled but didn't fall. He straightened slowly, blood at the corner of his mouth, his eyes never leaving Giwa's. "That's what I thought," Felix said quietly. "Violence is all you understand." "Stop!" Loveta found her voice at last, rushing between them. "Both of you, please stop. Felix, you need to go. You only make things worse." "Worse?" Felix looked at her with such sadness it made her chest ache. "Loveta, how could it be worse? I've watched from a distance for months. I've seen the light leave your eyes. I've seen you become a shadow. I walked away once because I thought I wasn't good enough for you, and I've regretted it every single day since." "How touching," Giwa sneered. "The poor farmer still pining for what he lost. But you didn't lose her, boy. You never had her. You could never give her what I can." "You are right," Felix said, and Lovita felt her heart crack at the admission. "I can't give her wealth or status or a big compound, but I would never raise my hand to her. I would never make her afraid to speak or laugh or breathe. I would treat her like the blessing she is instead of a possession to be controlled." Something in Loveta shifted at those words, something that had been sleeping under layers of fear and resignation. A tiny spark of the girl she used to be flickered to life. "Giwa," she said softly, "maybe we should talk about this inside." "We're done talking," Giwa snapped. "And you," he pointed at Felix, "are trespassing. I'm calling the guards." He strode toward the main house, and Lovita knew she had seconds to decide. In that heartbeat, she saw two futures. One where she returned to her beautiful cage and slowly disappeared, and one where she took a chance on the only person who had ever truly seen her. "Felix," she whispered, "I'm sorry for everything, for choosing wrong, for not believing in us." Felix reached out, his hand stopping just short of touching her face. "It's not too late, Lovita. It's never too late to choose differently." "But the blessing," she started to say, then stopped. How could she explain about the magical underwear, about the prosperity that followed love, about the trap she had walked into with open eyes? "I know about the blessing," Felix said, and her eyes widened in shock. "My grandmother told me," she said. "Women in our family have always known about the gifts some girls carry, the power to bring prosperity to men who love them truly. She said she recognized it in you the first time she saw us together." "You knew?" Lovita's mind reeled. "All this time, you knew?" "I knew," Felix confirmed, "and I didn't care about the blessing. I cared about you. But when you changed, when you became this, he gestured at her elaborate wrapper and jewelry, decorated doll you keep in your fancy compound. I thought maybe you'd imagined what we had. I thought maybe you'd always wanted to be with someone like Giwa, someone who could give you the life you deserved. The life I deserved, Lovetta felt tears burning her eyes. I deserved to be loved, Felix. That's all I ever wanted. Then come with me, Felix urged him, right now. Leave this place. We'll figure out the rest later.
For one beautiful, impossible moment, Lofta imagined it. She imagined walking out of the compound, leaving behind the jewelry and fine clothes and violent husband. She imagined returning to simplicity, to kindness, to being seen for who she really was. Then Giwa's voice shattered the dream. Guards, he bellowed from the house, seize that trespasser. 3 men emerged from the servants' quarters, armed with clubs. They advanced on Felix, their faces apologetic but determined. Giwa paid well, and no one crossed him. Run, Lofta urged Felix. Please, just run. Not without you, Felix said stubbornly. You can't help me if you are beaten or imprisoned, Lofta said, her voice breaking. Please, Felix, trust me. I'll find a way out of this, but I need you safe. I need to know you're out there, that the good in this world still exists somewhere. Felix looked at the approaching guards, then back at Lofta. Promise me, he said. Promise me you won't give up. Promise me you'll find a way back to yourself. I promise, she whispered. Felix ran. He slipped through the compound entrance just as the guards reached the spot where he'd been standing. They started to give chase, but Giwa's voice stopped them. Let him go, Giwa said, emerging from the house with a satisfied smirk. He's nothing, just a pathetic boy with delusions. He walked toward Lofta, his expression shifting to something darker. But you, my dear wife, have disappointed me greatly tonight. Lofta lifted her chin, and for the first time in months, she didn't flinch. Good, she said quietly. Giwa's eyes widened at her defiance, then narrowed dangerously. What did you say? I said good. I'm glad I disappointed you, because living to meet your expectations has been killing me slowly, and I'm tired of dying. She saw the slap coming this time, but she didn't try to avoid it. The pain exploded across her face, sharp and clarifying. She tasted blood, but she remained standing, her eyes locked on his. Is that all you have? She asked, her voice stronger than she'd heard it in months. Violence? Is that the only way you know how to control people? Giwa grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You are my wife. You will do as I say. Or what? You hit me again? You already do that. You take away my freedom? I have none. You stop loving me? You never loved me. You loved owning me. You loved the status I gave you and the wealth that followed, but you never once saw me as a person with thoughts and feelings and worth. You ungrateful. Giwa raised his hand again, but this time Lofta caught his wrist. The surprise on his face would have been funny if the situation wasn't so dire. I'm done, Lofta rained her voice clear across the compound. I'm done being small. I'm done being afraid. I'm done being your possession. She released his wrist and stepped back, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. But with the fear came something else, elation, the feeling of finally standing up for herself. Giwa's face contorted with rage. You regret this, he said, his voice shaking. By tomorrow, the entire village will know what an ungrateful, disobedient wife you are. I'll make sure no one helps you. No one offers you shelter. You'll have nowhere to go. Then I'll have nowhere to go, Lofta said simply. But I'll be free. She turned and walked toward the bedroom, her legs trembling, but her spine straight. Behind her, she heard Giwa shouting orders at the servants, heard his rage echoing through the compound, but she didn't look back. In the bedroom, she gathered a few simple things, not the jewelry or fancy clothes, but a plain wrapper, some food, and a small knife for protection. She looked at her reflection one last time, at the beautiful stranger wearing her face, and thought about the old woman's warning. Never take it off. But what kind of life was this, trapped in a beauty that attracted the wrong kind of attention, bound to a marriage that was killing her spirit? What was the point of the magic if it only brought misery? She pulled at the underwear, knowing it wouldn't move, but trying anyway. It remained fixed, as impossible to remove as skin from bone. Please, she whispered to whatever power that had created the magic. Please let me go. The underwear didn't budge. But outside her window, Lofta heard the sound of footsteps, someone running through the night instead of away from it. She peered out and saw Felix returning, this time with his grandmother, the old woman who recognized Lofta's blessing from the beginning. They weren't giving up on her. And suddenly, Lofta realized that maybe she didn't need to remove the magic to be free. Maybe she just needed to stop letting it define her. Maybe she needed to remember that beneath the transformation, beneath the beauty and the blessing and the curse, she was still herself. And herself had always been enough. The question was, would she survive long enough to prove it? Felix's grandmother was a woman carved from determination and wisdom. Her name was Mama Adanma, and she had lived through famines, wars, and 3 husbands who had all died peaceful deaths after prosperous lives. She walked with a staff made from iron wood, and when she entered Giwa's compound without invitation, even the guards stepped aside. "Where is he?" Mama Adama's voice carried across the compound like thunder before rain. Giwa emerged from the main house, his face a mixture of anger and confusion. "Old woman, this is private property. You cannot simply—" "Silence," Mama Adanma commanded, and something in her voice made Giwa's words die in his throat. "I am here for the girl, the one you have been tormenting. My wife is none of your concern. Everything in this village is my concern when it involves magic being misused and blessings being corrupted." Mama Adanma's eyes, sharp as a hawk's despite her age, fixed on Giwa with unsettling intensity. "Do you know what you've done, boy? Do you understand the forces you've been feeding on?" Giwa's confidence wavered. I don't know what you're talking about." "Liar!" The word cracked like a whip. "You knew from the moment you married her that something about her brought you fortune. You didn't question it, didn't wonder why your wealth multiplied overnight. You just took and took and took, like a leech that doesn't know when to stop drinking blood." Lovefa appeared at the bedroom window, her face pressed against the shutters, watching the confrontation unfold. "The blessing she carries was never meant for men like you. It was meant to reward true love, to create prosperity in households built on genuine affection and mutual respect. But you corrupted it with your false emotions and violent hands. You made a mockery of something sacred." "I love my wife," Giwa protested weakly. "You love owning her. There's a difference, though men like you rarely understand it." She turned toward the bedroom window. "Lovetha, child, come down here." Lovetha hesitated only a moment before obeying. She wrapped herself in her simple wrapper and descended into the compound, her feet bare, her face swollen from Giwa's latest attack. When she reached Mama Adanma's side, the old woman touched her cheek gently, examining the bruise with sorrowful eyes. "You've been hitting you for months," Mama Adanma said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Lovetha whispered, "and you've been trapped by the magic, by fear, by the belief that you made your choice and must live with the consequences." "I put on the underwear knowing what it would do. I wanted to be beautiful. I wanted to be seen. This is my fault." "No," Mama Adanma said firmly. "Wanting to be valued doesn't make you responsible for someone else's cruelty. The old woman who gave you that underwear, she offered you a choice, but she didn't warn you properly about the cost. That's not your fault either." "You know about the old woman?" Lovetha asked, shocked. "I know many things, including this. The magic that binds you can be broken, but only when you are ready to accept the truth of who you are without it." "I've tried to take it off desperately. I've tried so many times." "That's not what I mean." Mama Adanma took both of Lovetha's hands in hers. "The underwear won't come off because you're still holding on to what it represents. You're still trying to be the beautiful version of yourself, instead of accepting that you were always valuable, always worthy, always enough. Magic can sense that doubt. It feeds on it. It keeps you trapped until you truly believe you don't need it anymore." "That's ridiculous superstition," Giwa interjected, though his voice lacked conviction. "She's my wife, bound by marriage law, not magic." Mama Adanma barely glanced at him. "Your fortune started the night you married her, yes?" Giwa said nothing. "And every day since, everything you touched has been profitable. Crops that should have failed flourished. Deals that should have fallen through succeeded. You became wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. I'm a good businessman. You're an ordinary man who stumbled onto something extraordinary and convinced yourself you deserved it. But here's the thing you don't know. The blessing has a twin. For every ounce of prosperity falsely gained, there's an equal weight of misfortune waiting. You didn't truly love her, so you didn't earn the blessing properly. You stole it through false pretense and violence. And that, boy, comes with a price." Giwa paled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the moment Lovetha truly frees herself from you, from this marriage, from the belief that she needs the magic, from everything you represent, all the prosperity you've gained will vanish. More than vanish, it will reverse. Everything you've built will crumble. Every coin you've earned will turn to debt, and you'll be left with less than you started with, because that's what happens when you try to cheat fate." Silence fell over the compound like a burial shroud. "You're lying," Giwa said, but his voice trembled. "You're just trying to turn my wife against me." "Your wife is already against you," Mama Adanma said bluntly. "She has been for months. She's just been too frightened and beaten down to act on it, but that changes tonight." She turned back to Lovetha. "Child, listen to me carefully. The underwear will come off when you are ready, not when you want it to. but when you truly accept yourself without it. When you can look in a mirror and know, not hope, not wish, but know that you are valuable exactly as you are created, then the magic will release you. But I don't know how to do that, Lovetta said, her voice breaking. I've spent my whole life being told I wasn't enough. How do I suddenly believe I am? By remembering the people who saw you before the magic, Mama Dama said, squeezing her hands. My grandson saw you. I saw you. Your blessing saw you. It chose you because of who you are at your core, not because of how you look. The magic didn't create your value. It revealed what was always there. Something shifted in Lovetta's chest, a loosening, like a knot beginning to untangle. And what about my blessing? She asked. If I leave Giwa, if I remove the underwear, what happens to it? The blessing will remain, Mama Danma assured her. It's part of your spirit, not tied to the magic or any marriage. When you find someone who truly loves you, and you will, child, you will, the blessing will activate again, properly this time. It will create prosperity in a household built on genuine love. This is enough, Giwa exploded, his fear morphing into rage. All of you, off my property now. You are filling my wife's head with nonsense, turning her against her own husband. She needs no help turning against you, Felix said, stepping forward from where he'd been standing in the shadows. Your own actions accomplish that. Giwa turned on him with wild eyes. You, this is all your fault. Coming here, interfering in my marriage, trying to steal what's mine. She's not yours, Felix said calmly. She never was. You can't own a person. I paid her bride price. She's legally, traditionally my wife. And she is legally, traditionally entitled to leave if you are abusive. Bride price does not purchase the right to beat and terrorize a woman. If you want to keep her, you'd have to prove to the council that you are a fit husband. Shall we call them here now? Let them see her bruises, hear from the servants about what goes on in this compound? Giwa's face twisted with desperation and rage. He looked around at the gathered faces, his guards, his servants, all watching him with expressions ranging from pity to disgust. They had seen everything. They knew the truth. If she leaves me, Giwa said, his voice dropping to something dark and threatening, I'll make sure everyone knows she's cursed. I'll tell the village she's a witch who stole my fortune. No one will take her in. She'll be homeless, shunned, possibly killed. Do it, Lovetta said, and everyone turned to look at her. She stepped forward, her chin raised, her voice steady. Tell them I'm a witch. Tell them whatever you want. I'd rather be homeless and free than wealthy and trapped. I'd rather be shunned by people who can't see my value than celebrated by someone who only sees me as property. Lovetta, Giwa started, his voice suddenly pleading. No, she interrupted. I'm done. I'm done being afraid of you. I'm done trying to be perfect enough that you'll stop hurting me. I'm done believing that I need this beauty, this magic, this life to be worthy. I was worthy before I was beautiful. I'm worthy now, and I'll be worthy after the magic is gone. As she spoke, something incredible was happening. The magical underwear, which had clung to her body like a second skin for over a year, began to loosen. Just slightly, just enough for her to notice. The blessing you thought you earned, it was never yours. It was mine, and you borrowed it through false pretenses. Now I'm taking it back. She reached down, and for the first time since putting it on, felt the underwear move. It slid down her legs as easily as any normal garment and pulled at her feet. The transformation was immediate and profound. Lovetta's body shifted, returning to its original shape, thin, angular, plain. Her face lost its perfect symmetry. Her skin showed its spots and marks. She became once again the girl everyone had overlooked, and she had never felt more powerful in her life. Giwa staggered backward as if struck. No, what have you done? I freed us both, Lovetta said simply. She bent down, picked up the underwear, and handed it to Mama Danma. Destroy this, so no other girl makes the mistake I did. Mama Danma took the underwear with reverent hands. As you wish, child. They all heard it then, the sound of things breaking inside the main house, wood splintering, pottery shattering, the groan of a structure beginning to fail. The curse was already working, undoing all of Giwa's ill-gotten prosperity. What's happening? Giwa ran towards the house as tiles were sliding off the roof. My house, my goods, everything is disappearing, Mama Danma continued calmly. As I told you it would. False fortune never lasts, boy. You should have learned that by now. Giwa watched his world crumble around him and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy, just a profound emptiness where her fear used to live. Felix appeared at her side, offering his hand. Ready to go? Lovetta looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the same kindness in his eyes that had first drawn her to him. He wasn't looking at her with pity or disappointment now that she had returned to her original appearance. He was looking at her with love. I'm not beautiful anymore, she said. You are exactly as beautiful as you always were. I just couldn't see it clearly before because I let the magic blind me. But I see you now, Lovetta. All of you, and if you give me another chance, I promise I'll never look away again." Behind them, Giwa screamed as his fortune continued to unravel. But Lovetta was already turning away, her hand in Felix's, ready to discover what life looked like on the other side of freedom. What she didn't know yet was that the biggest lesson was still to come, and it would teach her the difference between true love and every counterfeit she had experienced so far.
The next year of Lofta's life unfolded like a story being rewritten, slowly at first, then with increasing confidence as she remembered how to be herself. She moved into Felix's grandmother's compound, where Mama Adama welcomed her with open arms and practical wisdom. "Healing takes time," the old woman said. "Don't rush it. Let your spirit mend at its own pace." Lofta helped with the farming, her hands growing calloused again from honest work. She relearned what it felt like to laugh without fear, to speak without measuring every word, to exist without constantly trying to please someone who could never be pleased. Some days were harder than others. She would wake from nightmares about Giwa, her body remembering the violence even when her mind knew she was safe. Felix was patient. He courted her properly this time, slowly rebuilding trust that had been broken by both of them. She for choosing security over love, he for doubting what they had. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. They walked side by side in the fields, and gradually, carefully, Lofta felt something growing in her chest that she'd forgotten existed. Hope. 3 months after leaving Giwa, Lofta had news from the village. Giwa had lost everything exactly as Mama Adama predicted. His grand compound had deteriorated, his businesses had failed, his debts had multiplied until he was forced to sell even his basic possessions. He'd left the village in shame, heading for the city where no one knew his name or his fall from grace. Lofta felt no satisfaction in his downfall. She simply felt relieved that he could no longer hurt her. Other men, emboldened by Giwa's fate, began approaching Lofta again. Word had spread about the blessing she carried, about the prosperity that followed true love. They came with gifts and promises, their eyes calculating rather than kind, seeking to profit from her the way Giwa had. "I always loved you, Lofta," Chuka the fisherman claimed, the same man who had called her ugly before her transformation. "Give me a chance to show you real love," said Emeka the trader, whose proposal she'd rejected when she was beautiful. One after another they came, and one after another Lofta turned them away. "They don't want me," she explained to Mama Adama one evening. "They want what they think I can give them. They see me as a tool for prosperity, not as a person. It's not love if someone only values you for what you can provide." "You've learnt well," Mama Adama said with a proud smile. "Many women never learn that lesson. They confuse being wanted with being loved, and they spend their whole lives trying to earn affection from people who only see them as useful." As the months passed, Felix and Lofta grew closer. They made plans together, not grand schemes of wealth or status, but simple dreams of a small farm, children playing in the compound, a life built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Felix never pushed her to marry, never demanded more than she was ready to give. He simply loved her, consistently and patiently, proving through actions rather than words that his feelings were real. One evening, nearly a year after Lofta had freed herself from Giwa and the magic, Felix took her to the place where they'd first sat together and watched the sunset. "I need to tell you something," his voice serious. Lofta's heart tightened with old fear. "What is it?" "I don't want your blessing," Felix said, looking directly into her eyes. "I need you to know that. If we marry, if we build a life together, I don't want it to be because of some magical gift that brings prosperity. I want it to be because we choose each other every day for who we are and nothing more." Lofta stared at him, stunned. But the blessing is part of me. If you truly love me, it will activate automatically. You can't just refuse it." "Can't I?" Felix smiled gently. "My grandmother says that blessings follow love, but they don't control it. She says that if I make it clear, to you, to the spirits, to fate itself, that I'm choosing you independent of any reward, the blessing might not activate at all. Or if it does, it will manifest differently, in ways that don't corrupt what we have." "Why would you give up prosperity?" Lofta asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because I've seen what the pursuit of it cost you," Felix said simply. "Giwa wanted the blessing. All those other men who've been chasing you want the blessing. They see you as a means to an end. But I see you as the end itself. You are the treasure, Lofta. Not what you can give me, but who you are. Your kindness, your strength, your courage to keep choosing hope even after everything you've been through. That's what I want. That's what I love." Tears streamed down Lofta's face. "I don't know if I'm strong or brave. Most days I just feel like I'm surviving." "That's what bravery is," Felix said, reaching out to wipe her tears with gentle fingers. "It's not feeling fearless. It's feeling afraid and moving forward anyway. You've done that every day since you left Giwa. You've rebuilt yourself from scratch. If that's not strength, I don't know what is."
Lofta leaned into his touch, feeling something settle in her chest, a sense of being fully seen and valued that she'd only glimpsed before. This was different from what she'd felt with Giwa, different even from the early days with Felix when her transformation had complicated everything. This was pure. This was real. This was love. Marry me, Felix said, not because of destiny or magic or blessings. Marry me because you want to wake up next to me every morning, because you want to build something real and lasting, because you believe that we can create a good life together through hard work and dedication and genuine care for each other. Yes, Lofta said, the word coming easily, without fear or doubt. Yes, I'll marry you. They married 3 months later in a simple ceremony attended by family and close friends. There were no grand gifts, no elaborate displays of wealth. Felix's bride price was modest, but given with deep respect. Mama Adama officiated, speaking words of wisdom about partnership and mutual support. And something extraordinary happened, or rather, didn't happen. The blessing didn't activate, not in the explosive, overwhelming way it had been with Giwa. Felix's crops grew well, but not supernaturally so. His farming brought steady income, but not excessive wealth. They had enough, always enough, but never an abundance that attracted the wrong kind of attention. The blessing is being gentle with us, Mama Adama explained when Lofta asked. Because your love is real, it's supporting you without overwhelming you. It's giving you what you need to build a stable life, but it's not creating the kind of dramatic prosperity that corrupts. This is how it was always meant to work.
Life settled into a peaceful rhythm. Lovita and Felix walked their farm together, their hands intertwined as they planted seeds and harvested crops. They welcomed a daughter, then a son, both healthy and happy. The children never knew about magical underwear or cursed prosperity or their mother's transformation. They only knew that their parents loved each other and loved them, and that their home was filled with laughter and security. Years passed. Loveta's mother, who had once despaired of her daughter's prospects, reconciled with her and became a devoted grandmother. Even in the village, attitudes slowly changed as people saw the genuine happiness in Felix and Loveta's marriage and realized that real love created its own kind of prosperity, not material wealth, but richness of spirit. One evening, when Loveta was 40 years old, she saw the old woman again. She was sitting outside her compound, watching her children play in the fading sunlight, when she felt a presence beside her. The same ancient woman who had given her the magical underwear materialized as if from the twilight itself. "You," Loveta said, her voice neither angry nor welcoming. "Me," the old woman agreed, settling onto the bench beside her. They sat in silence for a long moment, watching the children chase fireflies. "Did you know," Loveta finally asked, "when you gave me that underwear, did you know what would happen, the pain it would cause?" "I knew it was a test," the old woman said. "I knew that some women would use the beauty to find genuine love and others would be destroyed by the attention it brought. I knew that you would have to choose between easy beauty and hard-won self-acceptance. What I didn't know was which choice you would make." "That's cruel," Loveta said, but without heat. "Perhaps," the old woman acknowledged, "but consider what you learnt. Would you have ever truly valued yourself if you hadn't first experienced what it felt like to be valued for the wrong reasons? Would you have recognized real love if you hadn't first known its counterfeit?" Loveta thought about Jiwa, about the pain and fear of that year. She thought about the women in the village who were still trapped in marriages where they were seen as possessions rather than partners. She thought about her daughter, growing up in a home where she saw herself reflected in her father's loving eyes. "I wouldn't wish my path on anyone," she said slowly, "but I wouldn't trade who I've become because of it." "That," the old woman said with satisfaction, "is wisdom." She stood to leave, but Loveta caught her arm. "Why do some women carry this blessing? What's the purpose of it?" "To remind the world that love has power," she said simply. "Not romantic love alone, but all love. The love that sees value where others see nothing, that chooses consistently rather than passionately, that builds rather than consumes. Your blessing doesn't create prosperity from nothing. It reveals what was always possible when people truly care for each other, when they work together with genuine respect and affection. You don't make men rich, child. You show them how rich they could always have been if they chose love over selfishness." With those words, the old woman vanished, leaving Loveta alone with her thoughts and the sound of her children's laughter. That night, as Loveta lay beside Felix in their simple bed, she thought about everything she'd learnt. She thought about the girl she'd been, desperate to be seen, willing to change herself to be valued. She thought about the woman she'd become, scarred but whole, plain but powerful, unmagical but blessed in ways that mattered. "What are you thinking about?" Felix murmured sleepily. "That I'm grateful," Loveta said. "For what?" "For being overlooked enough to know my own worth before anyone else did. For surviving what should have destroyed me.
for learning the difference between being wanted and being loved. For you, for choosing me when you had nothing to gain from it. She turned to face him in the darkness, for learning that the real magic isn't in transformation, it's in acceptance, in being loved exactly as you are. Felix pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You are always magic, Lovita, with or without the underwear. Some of us were just lucky enough to see it from the beginning. And as Lovita drifted to sleep in the arms of a man who truly loved her, she finally understood the lesson that had cost her so much to learn. True value isn't given to you by others. It's recognized by people wise enough to see it. True love doesn't transform you into someone worthy. It reveals that you always were. And true prosperity isn't measured in wealth or status, but in waking up each day knowing you are loved, valued, and seen for exactly who you are. The story of Loveta became a folk tale in her village, passed down through generations. Mothers told it to daughters who struggled with self-worth. Grandmothers whispered it to granddaughters who chose the wrong men. And always the lesson remained the same. Beauty is temporary. Status is fleeting. Material prosperity can vanish overnight. But the person you are at your core, kind, strong, resilient, worthy, that is permanent. That is real. And that is what deserves to be loved. Choose people who see your true value. Choose partners who want to build with you, not profit from you. Choose love that frees you rather than traps you. And most importantly, choose to see your own worth before you allow anyone else to define it for you. Because in the end, the greatest magic isn't changing who you are to be loved. It's being brave enough to be yourself and trusting that the right person will love you for it. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they are enough exactly as they are.